Hi, I'm Taryn Khanam. I lead BritBangla. I'm really pleased that we're part of the South Asian Heritage Month. BritBangla members will be sharing their own reflections on our Bengali heritage and our dual identities, which is British and Bengali. We're part of the South Asian Heritage Month. It's a great opportunity for our members to participate and share and celebrate some of our own personal Bengali history, culture, and our creative blogs.
Partition, an untold tale. I am the flutter of empty pages at the back of the history books. I am the ellipses that hang in the air whenever 1947 is discussed. I am proof that there is far more to the story than time could ever tell. I am the daughter of both partition and unification. Partition of Punjab in the west, unification of Bengal in the east. But either way, I still carry the burden of an unshared history, the scars of unhealed wounds, the mysteries of whispered memories. When they talk about a body politic, they talk about me, for I am far more borders, barriers and bloodshed than I have ever been, flesh and bone. I am the letters from loved ones, lost in space simply for carrying the wrong postage stamp. I am mangroves devoid of fruit. I am playgrounds deaf to the sounds of childhood. I am splintered family trees who are still looking for their roots. But my history, like energy, can never be destroyed, for I put the rain in foreign. You can plant me anywhere and I will still bloom. Take me from the lush green of the village. Let me set sail on international air currents. Watch me crash land on a concrete jungle and I will still bloom. For I am the survivor's guilt. I am the revolution's crest. I am the ancestors' prayer. I am our history, remembered and reborn.
Hi, my name's Adam, and as part of South Asian Heritage Month, I'm going to be looking into my Bengali heritage. So a couple of things I'm going to share with you today. I've got some photos, some artwork, and a couple of books.
This is a photograph taken in Bangladesh a few months before my mum came to London in 1974. Left to right, there's my mum, her older sister, their aunt, my mum's other older sister, and their younger aunt. This picture was taken on Eid in Bangladesh to send over to family who had recently moved to London. The clothes my mum and her sisters are wearing are made from materials sent from their mother and father who were already living in London at the time. The materials are from London, but the clothes were made in Bangladesh.
My mum was brought up in East London where she lived with her family, and that's where I've lived for most of my life. I went to nursery there, I went to university there, and that's where my parents met in Tower Hamlets College. This is a picture from my mum and dad's wedding day. On the left is my mum in the red sari. Standing behind her is my dad. To the right of him are his sister and his mum, and to the right of them are my nanny and nana, my mum's parents, and standing with them are my mum's family and some colleagues who worked with my parents at Tower Hamlets College.
My mum and dad both worked at City and East London College in the 1980s at the branch in Tower Hamlets, which later became Tower Hamlets College. Dad was a history teacher, and it was then that my dad was given this book by Caroline Adams, who worked for the youth service in Tower Hamlets. There are a lot of links between the college, the youth service and the local community. In 1987 published Across 7 Seas and 13 Rivers, an oral history of early settlers from modern day Bangladesh. Another book I wanted to talk about was by Humayun Ahmed, who was a Bangladeshi writer who died in 2012. He wrote numerous novels and short stories, as well as screenplays for films and TV. A few of his books have been translated into English. One of these is Liberation, which is set in 1971. It weaves fictional accounts of individuals caught up in the war of liberation with factual evidence from newspaper reports and government records from the time to tell a story of Bangladesh's fight for independence.
I've also got some artwork I'd like to share with you, painted by my mum, who is an artist. As you can see, my mum's artwork is influenced by her Bengali heritage. Often pictures will portray women in traditional clothing, or the setting will depict rural life in Bangladesh. This picture is of a woman worker on a brick field in Bangladesh, and this image was used on an album cover of my mum and dad's friend who is a musician.
This is the album cover.
Thank you for letting me share these with you today as part of South Asian Heritage Month. I'd also like to thank BritBangla for getting me involved. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the month.
Tea. Who does not like a good cup of cha? Well, tea plays a huge part in my family history. My family are originally from Assam, so there's huge numbers of tea gardens there, and with the links with British, because during the colonial British period there was a big trade taking place in Assam, and that's the link with Bengal and Britain. I took inspiration from this 1920s family photo, the only kind of the old family history memory or treasure that we have since the partition happened in the British India. This had a huge impact on my family in terms of the migration story. The family had moved from Assam, then which is part of Bengal, then to the East Bengal, which is in Sylhet, and then to Kolera, where my grandfather worked in the tea gardens as a medical doctor, and then the movement transitioned to US and UK. So there's a lot of history and memories there we're going to lose. So it's really important to look back into the past before all of those memories disappear. I share some photos from my trip to Calcutta and Bangladesh. As part of my London Bengal walk, I traced through the historical links in the City of London to the Bengal trade, which brought enormous wealth to Britain. There still remains a number of buildings and statues that bring history to life. For example, there's still the East India pub, which is on Fenchurch Street, along with the original East India headquarters, where it used to be based. It's now the Lloyd's Insurance Building. Also all the designer apartments along Cutler Street and New Street. They used to store all the spices and tea and cotton that would come all the way from Bengal via the trade routes and the ships. So a few years ago, the Greenwich Maritime Museum did an exhibition, Muslims at Sea, and I was involved as a curator on the Bengali Lascars exhibition. This involved going through lots and lots of archived material that were donated by dismantling ships up north of England, who had lots of artifacts too that they were offering to the Greenwich Maritime Museum if they wanted to keep it. So part of that resulted as a Bengali Lascars exhibition. So these are just some of the photos that I'd gone through. And when you look through those photos, hundreds and hundreds and actually thousands, it was so difficult to choose any photos to come up with a Lascars exhibition, because I knew there were so many human stories behind each photos. And just to give you an example, there's a photo here, men playing carom board, and we know that carom board is one of the pastimes for Bengali people. So I don't know if they are Bengali, but just think possibly some of our family friends, their family members could be as part of these archives, and these are stories that are yet to be unveiled.
My name is Tanbir Mirza-Baeg, and it's great to be involved in the South Asian Heritage Month and part of a project where I talk about how partition affects me as a British-born Bengali. I never really learned about how the partition did affect East Bengal, either in school or at home. So I feel like it's a perfect opportunity to see just what history that our family might have gone through and what we can learn from there. And myself, though my own family never really got affected by the partition itself, I do have a connection to it, which if we look inside a certain box, we'll find out all the answers. So let's go through it. This box is an archive of items that I've put together in memory of my late Nanaji, Muhammad Abdul Latif. He died 2 years before I was born. I keep this box in memory him by, as the main connection I have to my heritage as a British Bengali. The box is made up of objects, photos and documents, amongst many other things. It's something that I always try to keep on adding to. One of the key items that connects me to the partition of 1947 is this East Pakistan driving license that my Nanji used to own. He was involved with World War II, being based in Burma as a mechanic, and I believe after war he probably had to get a similar job that required him to have this. And if we just open this up, we can see on the top a day of 18th of some month 1947. And if we continue to open up, we can see a photo of my Nanji, who would have been in his 20s, not sure exactly when. If we keep on going down, we'll see another date of 1950 something, which might indicate that this was some kind of renewed driving license, and I think that also explains this duplicate stamp right there. But either way, I feel like this is a very important signifier of identity when it comes to a partition and how East Bengal was affected. My mum said that my Nanji had told her that Molly wasn't too affected by partition. But then again, he never really talked to her about what happened at all. And through my own research, I know that Sylhet, the area that Molly Bazaar is in, had its own referendum into whether to be part of Bengal when it came to splitting of the area or be part of India, and it was a 57% split. But then there's also Molly Bazaar, which was a Hindi majority back then, wanted to stay part of India, but as we can see, that never was the case, and they stayed in Bangladesh. And that is a decision that pretty much defines me being Indian or Bangladeshi. But it's that loss of memory that leads to the loss of knowing the history, which is something that we really need to sort out. And before it's sadly too late, like it is Wananji. But at least I know having this box, I can connect and know, and in my future I can talk to my kids, my grandkids about what my Nanji was like, about the history. And I do really feel like we need to push to learn even more, to continue to learn, to gather, to archive all that we have, and just so we can make sure that our stories and memories are never forgotten. And luckily enough, with all the technology we have, we need to make sure we continue to do that, inspire others to continue to do that, and of course, in the end, make sure that we know our history, knowing our past, at least we know where we're going forward.
Hi everyone, my name is Anjuma Choudhury. I'm a third generation British Bangladeshi. It is an absolute honour to be part of this initiative. I think it's about time as South Asians celebrate our rich heritage, our cultures, even our history, the good and the bad. I think it is so important for British South Asians to know about the heritage, starting off with the family migration story. So how did your parents come to this country, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, or you could go even further back. I know in my case, I'm here today because of this one man, my dadu. This is my father's father, and I do have a couple of pictures of him, but I would like to show you this passport photo of my dadu that my father kept. It's very dear to him. So this is my dadu in his late age. What I do know about my dadu is very limited. What I can tell you is that he worked on the ships prior to partition, and he came to this country in 1950. I believe he landed in Bradford, good old Bradford. So he was traveling back and forth from the UK to Bangladesh. Eventually his family came as well, starting off with my uncle. He came to this country in 1964. My father came to this country in 1972, so soon after the Liberation War. So really our migration story began in 1915 till I would say the 1980s. So I'm pleased to say that I have lots of uncles, aunties, cousins and extended family in the UK. So from Bradford to London, from working on the ships to setting up restaurants, this was my grandfather's story. I think many Silitiya families can relate to his story. By the late 50s, early 60s, he set up his first restaurant in North London, I think in Finchley. It doesn't exist. However, my uncle set up restaurant businesses, so did my father. And I have these wonderful pictures of me celebrating my 5th birthday party at my father's restaurant. And you can't get any more desi than this. That's me, that's my mother, that's my father. Here's another picture of me feeding my grandfather. You can see we are all wearing, pretty much, the ladies in particular, wearing South Asian clothes, the saris, the kamises, the lengas. It's one of the ways we stay connected to our heritage is through fashion, as well as food, as well as music. And at this particular birthday party, we had everything. This was the first time me listening to Hindi, Bengali music being played live. I remember in particular, for the very first time, listening to a rendition of Happy Birthday in Bengali. And I thought, wow, this is actually quite embarrassing. I think most South Asian children and adults can relate to me when I say I did struggle with adapting this dual identity of being South Asian, Bangladeshi in my case, and British. I remember at that birthday party thinking, I'm so glad none of my white friends are here. That's because I was embarrassed of celebrating my heritage. Well, I wasn't, but the people around me were celebrating. And here I am wearing this lehenga, my mother's wearing the sari, and we're eating desi food. And, you know, my aunties are singing, my cousins are singing in Bengali, in Hindi, in English. And I just felt this is quite foreign. But I don't obviously feel that way now. I embrace all of it. And it's so wonderful that we are celebrating our heritage so confidently. I do wear my saris and I do wear my kamises and I do eat desi food. Of course, I grew up eating Indian, Bangladeshi food, but also I even make it for myself, you know? So things have changed over the years. I've evolved, I've become more accepting of where I've come from, the heritage that I carry with me. And I think that's what's made me the person I am today, but also more confident. I think that's really important. From struggling to embrace my Bangladeshi heritage as a child to now fully embracing it, celebrating it so openly, I have to give credit to my parents, particularly my father, who encouraged this love for the language, the food, the music, what else, the fashion even. And what I do have from my father is his poetry book. And I think this represents Bengali culture and heritage in Bangladesh and in India is our love for poetry. And my father started writing poetry before I was born, and sadly he passed away in 2013, and I managed to find his poetry book after his death, and here it is. His katha. Katha means textbook, I think, in Bangla. And here are some of his poems in Bangla. My Bangla is not as good as it used to be. I did get some of these poems translated. And there's one particular poem that I'm fond of, and it's in Bangla, it's called Bikarer Icha, which means vagabond's desire. I'm not going to recite it in Bangla. I'm sure it will sound very beautiful. It does actually. I will recite it in English, and I don't think it will do justice to the language and to the poem, but let's give it a go. Bikarer Icha, vagabond's desire, neither love nor beloved or the domestic life, not that eternal longing of a cob of a pen, not this natural symphony of a no man's land, on the bed of silent night under the pleasant moonlight. As it floods the world and the world invites, not among the aligned trees of the faraway village, nor in the city's fabricated civilization, not the usual tentified burden of bare sufferings, rather amongst the rebels in public procession, shaking the core with uproar. I shall be writing the story of blood. This is a desire of mine as a vagabond, by the late Choudhury, 1957 to 2013. My father was a vagabond, and he didn't like the 9-to-5 work life. He truly was a dreamer, an optimistic person, and full of imagination, joy. So may God bless his soul. I mean, I've spoken so much about my father and Dadu that I must talk about my mother, who also shaped me and influenced my life in so many ways. One of the things she was adamant about was me understanding the Bangla language. So she got my nana, this her father, to teach me Bangla at a very young age. I also lived in Bangladesh for about a year and a half. Again, my mother was adamant that me and my brother are exposed to our heritage, to the culture there. Back then, I did not enjoy it. But now, of course, I appreciate what it taught me. It taught me to be resilient, humble, and also appreciate my parents and grandparents. So there are so many ways I stay connected to the culture, to the heritage, through language, through food, through the music, and also I mentioned before fashion and clothes. I just recall my mother wearing these beautiful saris all the time. She doesn't wear them as often as she used to, so I'm holding on to her saris, and there's one particular sari that is absolutely beautiful. It's this beautiful black-green sari. These saris are so dear to me, and I know these saris will be passed down to me, of course, but also I would like to pass it down to my future daughters, nieces as well.